My name is Mr. Tabletop Impulse, and today we're going to go through all of the core changes that have happened in the new edition of Kill Team, because Kill Team Hivestorm has fully leaked. Before I start, I just wanted to talk about this video and maybe the ethics of it, I guess. So I did think long and hard about whether I should make a video, now that the full rules for Kill Team Hivestorm have leaked all over Reddit. And I did debate it with members of my Discord, the people that pay monthly to support the channel. And essentially, there's an issue with the YouTube scene where if I don't make the video, none of the other YouTubers that actually understand Kill Team are legally allowed to make the video because all those other channels are under the YouTuber's NDA. What will happen is we'll get loads of videos from channels that don't understand our game, but that love to make videos about whatever the latest thing is that's happening on the internet. And so, really I was the only one that could make, well, quite the kind of video this is going to be. So strap in, maybe get a notebook out, maybe make some notes. I'll leave it up to you. I'm going to try and guide you through all of the changes to the core rules from the previous edition of Kill Team into the new edition of Kill Team. Let's begin. So the first thing you're going to notice, guys, is that there are a bunch of keywords that have changed, but the actual context of the rule has not changed. So previously, if you had something that happened in the strategic ploys phase, whether that was a strategic ploy itself or an ability like rolling your prescience points for Night Lords, that is now a strategic gambit. Does exactly the same thing. Tactical ploys are now called firefight ploys. A move is now known as a reposition. AP is now called piercing. No cover is referred to as saturate. When you're fighting as a defender, you're now retaliating, and mortal wounds are now devastating. So those few changes, nothing new, nothing you can learn, except the new keywords themselves. Let's move on. So here we got some miscellaneous new rules that don't really fit into any of the sections we're going to go through, but nevertheless, you're going to have to remember them if you want to be able to play the new edition of Kill Team to a reasonable standard. So you're going to gain 2 CP each turn if you don't have the initiative, and that includes the first turn. Now that's on top of the 2 CP that you're going to generate at the start of the game. So if you have the initiative, you're going to go into turning point 1 with 3 CP. If you don't have the initiative, you're going to go into turning point 1 with 4 CP. All operatives start on conceal, but they can change their order in turn 1. Overwatch is now referred to as counteract and allows you to do any 1 AP action, but you can't move over 2 inches as part of counteract. Traverse is gone as a rule, and just to note, you can't climb during a dash action, so you can no longer dash across a barricade. You can't pick up a marker in control range of an enemy operative, even if you have more APL. Everybody can do a 4-inch jump, with no test. It has to be in a straight line, and you can ignore a 1-inch height difference, or a rampart on the building that you jump to, but you have to climb any rampart on a building that you're jumping from. Now, I've gone over a lot there. You may want to wind back, refer to the slides again, make some notes, whatever suits you, but a lot has changed, and there's going to be a lot more changes as we move further through the presentation. Shooting. If someone is visible, you can shoot them. And by visibility, of course, I'm talking about true line of sight. Get down to your model's eye view, look through their head. If you can see your opponent, you can shoot them. The only exception now is if they're both concealed and in cover. As in the current edition of the game, cover is whenever you're within an inch of intervening terrain and not within 2 inches of the shooting operative. Now, obscuring still exists as a concept, and it happens when there's intervening heavy terrain not within an inch of either operative. But when you're obscured, when you're shooting someone who's obscured, you must discard one success of your choice instead of retaining it, and crits are retained as normal and cannot be upgraded. Crits are retained as normals, not as normal, but as normal hits. important, nearly misspoke there, and cannot be upgraded back to crits via another rule. Intervening, so whether a piece of light terrain or a piece of heavy terrain is intervening, is worked out in the same way as the current edition by nominating a point on the attacker's base and then drawing a line from that point to either side of the opponent's base, and you might wish to use a laser to help you with this if it's in some way debatable or edge case. This slide is called the thin plastic disc zone. So we've got thin plastic discs, okay? I've ranted about these before. Because this is the optimal way to mark out various things on the Kill Team map. We now know that the cardboard objective token is 40 mil, but you have a control range around that of 1 inch. So, with a bit of conversion from metric to imperial, you might decide that you want to own some 90.8mm thin plastic discs to visualize control range. This is smaller than the current objective markers that people have been using, right? Now, it's a little trickier than that because you need to have visibility to the 40mm marker as defined in the rules to control the objective. So if you're going to have a 90.8mm thin plastic disc, you're going to also have to delineate inside that, however you want to do it, where that 40mm marker actually is. All the other markers for things in the game such as smoke are 20mm, again with this range of 1 around them. So perhaps you also want some 70.8mm thin plastic discs to help you to visualize areas of smoke, minefields, things like this. Okay? Terrain. Couple of new terrain keywords for you. Okay, so there's a new keyword, blocking, which defines, it's the old "can you shoot my feet under this pipe?" They're now a terrain keyword for areas like that to say, no, this is blocking, even though the model might have a gap. There's another new terrain keyword, which is exposed. So exposed terrain is never intervening. So you can never factors in to anything really, such as a freestanding ladder. Okay. You've got another new keyword, accessible. This is the new word for doors. Now, the only core change they've made to doors is it costs an additional inch to move through a door. So you've got to, if you move through a door, you lose an inch off your move. There are some other changes to doors that in theory only apply to the Killzone Vulas, but they are really good changes, but we're going to get to those on the next slide. Okay? Vantage. Vantage has been reworked significantly. So if you're shooting an engaged model from a vantage point, you can retain a normal hit before rolling. If you're 4 inches higher, okay, usually that's going to mean you're on the ground floor, first floor, second floor, okay, you can retain 2 normal hits from that second floor. This is if you're shooting an engaged model, remember. If you're shooting a concealed model, then they, as before, can't claim cover from light terrain for the purposes of being an invalid target. But they are still in cover, and indeed now, they actually gain a bonus to their cover save when they're being shot at from a vantage point and they are on conceal. So they can choose to retain 2 automatic saves for cover, or they can choose to retain 1 save as a crit. So they will get to decide what they're doing with that after they've seen your attack dice, right? The floor of vantage is light terrain. So it's generally going to be intervening when you're standing on the vantage, which is strange for them to go back to that idea, but the rulebook says to imagine the operative crouching down on top of the vantage point to get cover. So if you're concealed on a vantage point, you no longer need to worry about there being a rampart or a barricade up there. If you're concealed on a vantage point, people aren't going to be targeting you unless you've got one of these 2-story ruins that people can shoot down on you from, okay, because it is light terrain, the floor. It also says you ignore heavy terrain that's attached to the vantage that you're on for the purposes of obscuring. Okay? Thinking about like the Octarius battlements here. Alright? Now, there are some extra ones for Killzone Vulas. In the Killzone Vulas, there are these small little unbroken windows that look like jail cell windows. You can't draw visibility through those unless you're drawing visibility to an operative within an inch of the window. Okay, weird little edge case thing, but I'm sure it came up in playtesting. Vulas adds door fight. This is essentially the hatchway fight from Into the Dark. So people can no longer block a door. So if you're in base-to-base contact with a door, you can do a fight against anybody that's within 2 inches of the door on the other side. Even though this rule is presented in the Killzone Vulas section of the book, I would implore the community, if they're going to play on Octarius and Chalnath and all that old terrain still, roll this rule through to that older terrain as well, because blocking doors kind of obnoxious and silly. And then Vulas also has strongholds, these 2 big buildings with a completely square footprint. As previously talked about from the Nova Open video, if you're on the floor of the stronghold, your blast, your torrent, and your devastating weapons all gain lethal 5 up, much similar to Into the Dark, when you're shooting at somebody on the ground floor of the stronghold. Also, if you're within a stronghold and you're retaliating, that is to say, defending against a fight action, remember from earlier in the presentation, against an opponent that's outside the stronghold, you actually strike first. So you resolve your, not necessarily strike, you could parry, but you resolve your dice first, okay? So about Beta Decima. So Beta Decima is a weird one. They really didn't make many changes to Into the Dark, how that works as core at all. Although they have changed the maps and the number of objectives. Beta Decima, they kind of put some rules in to make it feel more like it used to. So you can't shoot at anybody across more than 4 inches of water, and you can't shoot at somebody from a gantry if there's an intervening gantry footprint between you and them. So they've put some things into Beta Decima to make it feel really quite similar to the previous edition, where obscuring meant that you couldn't shoot somebody. So there's a lot more of that, and it's not called obscuring, so it doesn't get turned off again by things that turn off obscuring. Beta Decima is going to be an interesting one. I know people don't like it. They have changed the maps. I'm not comfortable reproducing any images from the leaks at the moment, so we're not going to be able to discuss the maps and things like that. But I do think, you know, that 4-inch jump with no test is going to change how we think about Beta Decima at least a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if people, I hope people at least give it a go. With the new rules, to see if they've improved it or fixed it before they write it off again, basically. We got some new weapon rules. Okay, so Accurate X allows you to retain X dice as normal hits, and that rule is allowed to stack if you have it from 2 sources. You're allowed to stack it as high as Accurate 2, which I thought was an interesting little call out. Ceaseless, which now allows you to reroll 1 dice of any one result, rather than simply rerolling ones. Hot, which is roll a d6 after you shoot now, and if you roll under the weapon's hit, which is what BS used to be called, right? If you roll under the weapon's hits characteristic, you take a number of wounds equal to the result of the dice times 2. So poor old veteran guardsmen, if they shoot with a plasma that's hot, they could roll a 3, and it takes 6 mortal wounds, which would be quite poor for them. All right. Also, because they've moved hot away from being an attack roll, it's not one of the things that you can re-roll with a command re-roll. So those plasma guns are going to become a lot more lethal when you choose to fire them on overcharge. Punishing is a new rule for when you roll a crit, you can promote a fail to a normal. Seek removes the ability for operatives to claim cover from terrain for the purposes of targeting. Severe means when you don't retain a crit, promote a normal to a crit. Shock, when you strike with a crit, you discard an opponent's normal. This is in combat, or you can discard a crit if they don't have any normals. And then stun, it's basically going to just be the ranged half of the stun rule, with the close combat half being kind of rolled into shock now, right? I will say there are some other subtle changes not on the slide. So, for example, Seek can have, in parenthesis, heavy terrain, light terrain, to say it only works on certain kinds of terrain. And they did say for heavy, you can have heavy that lets you dash, or heavy that doesn't let you do anything as well. So there are a couple of little changes where things can scale in a way they never used to. But by and large, it's not on the slide. It's largely unchanged. Universal equipment, so we know I've covered all this before. I'm not going to cover smoke, grenades and stun grenades and heavy barricades and light barricades again, because we covered those in a previous video, so please go and watch that. Universal equipment. So ammo, if you're within an inch of the marker, you can re-roll an attack dice when you shoot. Comms, this is a weird one. If you're within an inch, you add 3 inches to the distance of any, and it says like support actions, which are the select a friendly operative with X type rules, which I'm sure is really important for some kill teams, but it seems like a very niche upgrade pick to me. Razor wire, which costs 2 to cross now, which is interesting. Mines do D3 plus 3 damage to the first person to move onto the marker. Friendly fire is perfectly possible. Portable barricades seem a bit cool. They give you +1 to your save. So you can have a marine with a 2-up save if you really wanted to when you're in cover from them, and you can move with the portable barricade, but your movement is reduced by 2 inches and you can't climb, drop or jump. And then ladders, you deploy them in your territory. When you climb, you can treat vertical distance as 1 inch. And frag and crack grenades will hit on a 4+. Finally, we're going to talk about scoring. So, again, as we more or less learned from the Nova exhibition game, all 3 objectives, whether that's crit, attack, and kill, are worth 6 VP each, equally, okay? And then you will score half as many victory points again, rounding up from the one you secretly nominated at the start. There are now 9 different crit ops, that is to say primary objectives. So whereas before we had 3, capture, secure and loot, there are now 9. I'm not going to go through them all here. When I feel comfortable sharing photographs of the game components and the cards, I will go through them then, but rather than just type out all the cards and try and talk cohesively about them, I'll just mention that there are 9 of them. Obviously, you can find yourself on Reddit and find yourself the leaks yourself. There are 3 tac ops per archetype now, but you do only need to select 1. You only have 1 tac op card to worry about during the game, from which you can score a max of 6 VP. Again, I've not reproduced all of those here, but if you look, you will find them. But all the archetypes have remained the same. Final thoughts. So I've tried to rattle through that pretty quickly. Like, it's a video that's pretty dry, but it has taken me a number of hours of reading through the whole of the core rules to try and pick out those pieces that have actually changed. So hopefully someone's found this summary really useful and valuable. If you have found it really useful and valuable, I did go into teacher mode to try and get through it kind of in a punchy and pacey way. Please subscribe to the video, okay, to the channel. That is the best way that you can kind of signal to me that you got something useful out of the content. Also, leaving a comment saying it was good and useful to you and saved you from having to read the 2 things and pick through them. You know, it would be good to know. If I missed anything and you've read through the leaks yourself and you're like, oh Mr. Tailtwimples missed this thing entirely and this is a big huge thing, let me know down in the comments. I have to say there's a lack of energy after this in this video. It's because I am still extremely tired. I was at the Turning Point Tactics tournament at the weekend, you know, and I got back in late on Sunday night. I've been to work, come back from work, and I basically, obviously, read to my daughter a little bit, but spent most of the evening reading through the rulebook for this video and putting together this slide deck and now recording it. There are so many other videos I want to do. I need to talk about the new kill teams in terms of the endorsed and not endorsed kill teams. Need to talk about the spoilers they've put out for the Imperial kill teams in the new rules. Need to talk about maps, all kinds of things I want to talk about. So there's probably going to be a video every day this week, but hopefully I can get some sleep and catch up on that as well. So thank you for bearing with me. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found value in it. Hope you're not too angry that I haven't totally ignored the leaks. I know some people are very anti-leak and some people are pro-leak. I just didn't want to live in the world where the only person allowed to talk about the leaks was Auspex Tactics and Valrak, right? So now at least they've been talked about by somebody that knows what a kill team is. Alright guys, have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow with something else. I hope you've enjoyed reading through everything and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Cheery, 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 bye.